Let's take a look at some of the top stories coming out of the region this hour. An Indian Tejas fighter jet crashed during a flying display at the Dubai Air Show, killing the pilot. Eyewitnesses report the aircraft was performing a low roll before going down in flames about 1.6 kilometers from the show site. An earthquake of magnitude 5.7 struck near Bangladesh's capital of Dhaka earlier today. At least 5 people have been reportedly killed. The tremors of the quake were felt in several parts of northeast India. As China-Japan continue to lock horns over Japanese Prime Minister Takaichi's recent remarks, the Chinese Foreign Ministry has now accused Japan of accelerating its armament. China has also said that Japan's action has aroused a public outrage from the people of Japan. A Japanese regional governor has given a green light for a partial restart of the Kashiwazaki Kariya nuclear plant, which is the world's biggest. This is seen as Japan's effort to revive its nuclear sector and reduction of fossil fuel imports. An explosion at a glue-making factory in Pakistan has killed at least 16 people and injured 7. While the manager of the factory has been arrested, the owner of the factory continues to be on the run. French President Emmanuel Macron has said that France wants partnership, not dominance in the Indian Ocean. The French president calls for stronger regional cooperation during a 24-hour state visit to Mauritius. Now in Africa, gunmen in Nigeria abduct 52 students from a Catholic school in Niger State, coming from local reports, and officials confirm a kidnapping but say the exact number of pupils is still unverified. World leaders have started arriving in Johannesburg, including Narendra Modi, Keir Starmer and Chinese Premier Li Qiang for Africa's first G20 summit. South Africa's agenda focuses on climate disasters, sustainable debt, energy transitions and fair mineral trade. We start this hour in the Middle East, and an Indian Tejas fighter jet crashed during a flying display at the Dubai Air Show, killing the pilot in the process. Eyewitnesses report the aircraft performing a low roll before going down in flames around 1.6 kilometers from the show site, sending a plume of smoke into the sky. Videos on social media showed the jet bursting into a fireball on impact as spectators watched in shock. The accident occurred on the last day of the Middle East's largest air show, attended by thousands, including aviation industry leaders and military officials. The Indian Air Force has announced an inquiry expressing condolences to the pilot's family. Officials say it is believed to be the first crash in the air show's history, which began in 1986. Okay, joining us now is Group Captain VN Jha. He's an aviation expert, joining us live from New Delhi. Thank you very much for joining us here on the program. Group Captain, a pilot has been killed during this warplane crash, this Indian warplane crash at the Dubai Air Show. What is the first thing investigators will be looking for in an incident like this?
Very good evening to you. Very unfortunate of this accident, and my heart and mind goes to the pilot and their family, bereaved family. My condolences for them. I hope they will sustain it, and we in the Indian Air Force, we are always ready for any machine that goes up. There are many factors that can involve it. So mentally, we are ready for any such situations to happen. And this is not the first time in an air show that mishap has happened. We have seen many of the air shows in the past, wherein many of the aircrafts, they have had crashes, fatal often, and some with the ejection as well. So it is on the record, it does happen. And the sole reason for this is that in the air show, you intend to outperform your competitors. So here also, whatever aircraft would have been there on the air show, flying there, giving flying demonstrations, every pilot, every group, every nation, they must be trying to show something which other plane was lacking. And that is where we usually have a tendency to mishandle the aircraft control. In this particular crash, what we have seen a couple of seconds of even level flight just before the aircraft nose goes down. I could see the aircraft was flying maybe straight or in a curve, and it did maneuver a roll, a slow roll. Aircraft was a slightly lesser of the speed, and that is where I could see the nose going down.
Yes.
And once in a roll, nose went down. The height separation was just about 1.2 kilometers or so, or even less than that, what I could make it. There was hardly any chance to recover it. And in the fighter aircraft, there is a saying we have learned from the MiG-21 days, that this aircraft flies like a bullet, but drops like a stone. In any of the single engine aircraft, where the weight to lift ratio is slightly on the marginal side, like MiG-21s that we have had, this is a normal tendency. In this particular case, I could see the aircraft was, getting a roll down, and then that is the time when the nose went down. And nose went down. If the nose goes down at that low speed, you can't generate enough of the lift under the wing that could put the plane back to the flights. The most unfortunate part is that before crashing, the pilot couldn't initiate ejection. That is one thing what is worrying to me, because this aircraft has got Martin Baker 16 seat, which has got 0-0 capability and very sturdy one. So this is one thing what is worrying me. I'm also aware that in the air show, I told you, they try to, over maneuver, over smart any other technique of the aircraft or any other aircraft. So that could be one of the reasons why he couldn't initiate ejection. Okay. Or otherwise, during the aircraft crash investigation, the team will be looking at it. That did Martin Baker's seat fail in ejection? Was the ejection process initiated and then it didn't have it? Or there was also a sink rate at a very high rate. Even at that sink rate, if the ejection is initiated, pilot should be able to clear the aircraft.
Yes.
So all these things have happened. Let's see how the investigation goes. But I'm not much worried. This is a very sturdy aircraft. I've been part of the design development team of some of the subsystems of this aircraft at Bangalore. I'm based at Bangalore. So I have worked with those design team, and I have witnessed many initial flights with all telemetric parameters coming to us, and everything is absolutely fine. This aircraft is 4.5 generation aircraft. It can outsmart any other aircraft here in this. And since it is a small one, with the updated avionics day by day, it can outmaneuver any other aircraft in the region.
Yes, Group Captain VN Jal, thank you very much for your analysis there. And we will, of course, bring you all the information coming out of Dubai once we get it here on the channel. However, we move next over to South Asia. And a magnitude 5.7 earthquake struck Bangladesh today, killing at least 5 people, including a child, and injuring around 100 others. The epicenter was in Narsingdi, around 40 kilometers east of the capital of Dhaka, where buildings were damaged and residents rushed into the streets. Injuries included students, factory workers, and local residents, some in critical condition. Earlier reports said 3 people died when a building railing collapsed. Tremors were also felt in eastern India, but no major damage was reported there. Eyewitnesses described buildings shaking violently, loose bricks falling, and widespread panic. The Bangladesh government is closely monitoring the situation and has directed emergency and rescue operations to assist those affected. We're now joined by Shoaib Chowdhury. He's the editor of the Blitz and he joins us live from Dhaka. First of all, very glad you're okay, Shoaib. What more can you tell us about this? Bangladesh has recorded 5 deaths now and 100 injuries. What do we know so far, if you have any other information from Bangladesh about the severity of this quake?
Thank you very much, Thomas. Until now, the number of deaths is 7 and injured is 100. And the death took place in Dhaka, Narshindi, Gazipur, and Narayanganj district. Until now, there is no major damage to the infrastructure in the country. But as you mentioned, that some of those injured are in critical condition and they are being treated in the local hospitals. And this 5.7 Richter scale earthquake in Bangladesh, which lasted for almost 12 seconds, and it was around 10:38 a.m. in the morning. Today, Friday, was a weekly holiday, so naturally there were no people. Most of the people were not in the factories and working places. Otherwise, the number of casualties would increase. But again, I mean, in Bangladesh, you know, it was being warned repeatedly that Bangladesh actually sits in the earthquake risk zone. So if the similar earthquake takes place, or even in a larger scale, than for a country like, for a city like Dhaka, which is extremely crowded, I mean, with a huge population and lots of high-rise buildings. So in the future, it may cause serious, bring serious consequences to the country. But now, today's incident, as I mentioned, 7 people have killed and over 100 injured. And until now, there is no major information of any damaged infrastructures.
Yeah. And Shoaib, just finally, quickly, we're running out of time. Bangladesh obviously sits in a high-risk seismic zone. Does this incident expose weaknesses in the infrastructure of Bangladesh, especially, of course, in these older and more informal structures in the country?
Yes, you are correct. You see, the government has not taken, I mean, none of the government has taken any initiative for such a consequence, because, as I say, that if any earthquake bigger than this one takes place in the future, Bangladesh really may face a real devastation, which may be more than any other earthquake that we have seen in the recent years in the world.
Shoaib Chowdhury, thank you very much for joining us here on the programme. A pleasure to get your insight on that. Now we move over, and China has accused Japan of accelerating its rearmament amid rising diplomatic tensions between the two nations. A spokesperson from the Chinese Foreign Ministry has stated that Japan has been relaxing post-World War II restrictions and strengthening its military capabilities despite international obligations to maintain disarmament. She has also called on the international community to prevent Japan from undermining the post-war order or returning to militarism. Let's listen in to what the ministry said further on the matter.
二战胜利后，开罗宣言、波茨坦公告、日本投降书等国际法律文件对日本作为战败国的义务作出了明确规定，包括完全解除武装，不得维持能使其重新武装的产业。然而，日本近年来不断自我松绑，扩张军力，防卫预算13连增，通过了新安保法案，解禁集体自卫权，将武器出口3原则修改为防卫装备转移3原则，不断放宽武器出口限制，甚至开始出口杀伤性武器。日本宣称要建立无核武器世界，却大举强化延伸威慑合作，甚至谋求修改不制造、不拥有、不运进核武器的无核3原。
Moreover, China has noted that even though Japan claims to support a world free of nuclear weapons, it is still expanding extended nuclear deterrence cooperation and considering changes to 3 non-nuclear principles. Now, tensions have intensified after Japan's new Prime Minister commented that a Chinese attack on Taiwan could threaten Japan, triggering a military response and targeting diplomatic concerns in Beijing. Meanwhile, China has responded with economic measures, including travel boycotts and import bans on Japanese seafood, with impacts extending into cultural events. Joining us now is Dr. Asta Chadha. She is at Ritsu Meikan University, an Associate Professor of International Relations. Thank you very much for joining us, Dr. Chadha, here on NewsX World. It's a pleasure to hear from you, as always. Beijing accuses Japan here of accelerating rearmament. Do you think China is genuinely concerned, or is this just strategic messaging coming out of Beijing?
Well, I mean, there are two sides to this story, right? I mean, one is the fact that Japan has indeed shown a shift in its defense posture. The current Prime Minister, Sanae Takaichi, has mentioned that she is willing to increase the defense spending and increase it by 2% of GDP by 2027, right? And that includes Japan acquiring counter-strike capabilities. So that's one aspect of the Chinese statement. But then on the other hand is the fact that China too has upped its, defense. China too has upped its presence, and specifically military presence around the disputed islands, like Senkaku Islands, or even around Taiwan. So both of them are kind of creating this sense of insecurity in East China Sea, causing both sides to up their defense posturing in the region. And then to cap it all is the fact that US too is pressurizing Japan to be the greater burden of this alliance, which includes the fact that Japan is required to integrate with the US forces and potentially, work something related to the being part of the US nuclear umbrella. So overall, there is this tussle or a tug of war that's going on between China and Japan at the moment.
Yet how much of Japan's current military buildup is driven by China's assertiveness in the East China Sea and, of course, the Taiwan Strait as well?
I mean, absolutely. Japan has maintained some capabilities, although Article 9 restricts Japan from holding a lot of those military capabilities. Yet Japan does have a self-defense force. Japan has, in the recent years, created its specific and, let's say, significant presence around the disputed Senkaku Islands. But the fact that the current Prime Minister Sanae Takaichi mentioned that a Taiwan crisis could potentially trigger issues related to Japan's survival, which is being interpreted as Japan trying to imply a potential collective self-defense. This is definitely something new in the Japanese foreign policy. That's one. And two, given the fact that there is an increase in Chinese activity in East China Sea, this is causing surely more Coast Guard patrols. This is even more likely to increase the Japanese side of surveillance in the region.
Yes, indeed. Dr. Chadha, do stay with us as we have further updates coming out of Japan, where it is moving to partially restart the Kashiwazaki Kariwa nuclear power plant. The decision comes from the Niigata Prefecture governor, and it removes a major hurdle for TEPCO to activate one or two of the plant's largest reactors. However, the governor will still need approval from the Prefectural Assembly, which is scheduled for the 2nd of December. This would mark TEPCO's first restart since the 2011 Fukushima disaster. Japan had shut all 54 reactors after the Fukushima incident, leaving the country heavily reliant on fossil fuels. Of the 33 operable reactors remaining, 14 have already resumed operations. Listen now in to what the governor of Niigata, Hayako Hanasumi, had said on the issue.
そこに記載されております7つの項目について、国の対応を確認した上で、確約をいただいた上で、その上で新潟県としては了解することとしたいと思います。私としてはこの判断を行ったこと、そしてこの判断に沿って今後知事の職務を続けることについて県議会から信任または不信任の判断をいただきたいと思っています。これまでの国や東京電力の安全対策あるいは防災対策に関する取り組みが県民に十分認知されていない状況が判明したということ、そして こうした対策について認知度が高くなるほど、再稼働に肯定的な意見が増える傾向というものを把握できたということ。
Now, residents in Niigata are divided on the decision, with safety information being shared to address concerns. The restart is expected to reduce fossil fuel imports and boost energy security in Japan. Dr. Chata, has Japan genuinely addressed the safety failures exposed in the Fukushima accident, especially like old reactors like this one?
Absolutely. I mean, Japan, at least we know since 2011, majorly most of the Japanese nuclear plants had been shut down. So since then, Japan has tried to, it's been over a decade, they've tried to do significant studies, they've dedicated significant resources into making sure that that accident or any such incident does not occur, because this is not just an international crisis for Japan, specifically for Fukushima prefecture. It was pretty much a situation of paralysis, both economically and in terms of energy. A lot of towns turned into ghost towns because people didn't want to live there anymore. So for Japan, it is a very, very important issue. And, this is not just related to 2011. The Japanese sensitivities towards nuclear energy go way back in the Second World War, given the events of Hiroshima and Nagasaki. And hence, people continue to be divided even today, but there is less, I would say, concern in terms of at least, the efficacy and in terms of the safety of these nuclear power plants.
Yes, indeed. Dr. Chata, as always, it's a pleasure to speak to you here on the programme. Thank you very much for taking the time and joining us. We now move on, and an explosion at a glue-making factory in Pakistan has killed at least 16 people and injured 7 others. The blast reportedly collapsed the factory and sparked fires in nearby homes. It occurred at around 5 a.m. local time on the Malikpur area of Faisalabad, west of Lahore in Punjab province. As per the preliminary investigation, a gas leak inside the factory's chemical warehouse triggered the explosion. While the authorities have arrested the factory manager, the owner of the factory is still on the run. Reports suggest that the majority of those killed were residents from adjacent homes, including 6 children. Factory fires are not uncommon in the country. In 2024, an explosion at a textile mill in Faisalabad killed a dozen people, while a blast at a firecracker factory in Karachi killed 4 and injured 11 more last week. Now we move on, and French President Emmanuel Macron has called for greater regional cooperation in the Indian Ocean, emphasising that France does not seek domination but aims to work in partnership with nations in the area. Speaking during his state visit to Mauritius, Macron highlighted France's significant role in the region, thanks to its territories like Réunion and Mayotte, and its ties with countries like Mauritius, the Seychelles and Madagascar. Macron stressed the importance of combating illegal activities like drug trafficking and illegal fishing, and announced plans for joint patrols and security exercises. It also reaffirmed France's commitment to maintaining its military presence in the region amidst growing influences from that of Russia, China and India. Let's listen in to the French president.
Sécuritaire. La France est en effet, je le rappelais, par sa géographie, La Réunion, Mayotte, par ses ressortissants établis à Maurice, aux Seychelles, à Madagascar, aux Comores, par ses familles mêlées et ses liens humains, une des puissances de cet océan Indien. Mais nous l'abordons avec aussi beaucoup d'humilité, une volonté de travailler en partenariat. Et vous le voyez, et je veux ici le redire devant vous, la France n'entend pas dominer, elle veut rassembler. Elle n'entend en rien imposer, elle veut coopérer. Et face à toutes les tentations parfois hégémoniques, dans un monde de désordre où vous voyez comme moi le retour des impérialismes, et la région n'y échappe pas, je veux que vous voyiez dans la France et dans toute la communauté française qui est ici rassemblée, des partenaires de confiance, des familles qui sont souvent là depuis longtemps.
Well, that's all that we have time for. Keep watching NewsX World for more international news updates.